For my husband Stephen's 60th birthday celebration, our daughter, Lorraine, made a reservation at a high-end French restaurant. I went to the hair salon and wore a dress that Stephen had given me as a gift before. I also had Stephen's suit cleaned and prepared a present for him. It's been years since we've been to such a fancy French restaurant. I felt giddy and excited, forgetting our age for a moment. On the day of the celebration, I arrived early and decided to kill time at a nearby cafe. While I was sipping on a hot lemon tea alone, Lorraine joined me after finishing work. As we chatted, it was 30 minutes before our reservation when Stephen called. "I'm stuck at work and won't make it. I'll cancel the reservation." "Wait a minute, can't you ask to delay it a bit? When will you be done?" "Another time, okay? I'm busy, gotta go." Even though he was busy, this was too sudden. Lorraine had gone through the trouble of making the reservation, and I had been looking forward to it so much. Seeing my disappointment, Lorraine stood up with a smile. "If he canceled it now, there's still time. I've always wanted to try that place. They should be preparing since it's 30 minutes before. Let's go." "You're right. After all, you made the reservation for us." With a change of heart, I looked forward to having a last date with my daughter before she got married. When we arrived at the restaurant, we found out that no cancellation had been made and someone else had already arrived under Stephen's name. Seeing the person's back, I called Stephen. "I'm still at work. I'm busy. I canceled the restaurant." "Is that so? Sorry. By the way, you like that red wine, don't you? Must be nice to drink while working." The man sitting at the table with a view of the city put down his fork and picked up his phone. Seeing him panic, I was exasperated. When he noticed me walking towards him, Stephen's face turned pale. And then he saw Lorraine was with me, too. "My name is Youre, 55 years old. I live with my husband, Stephen, and our daughter, Lorraine. I met Stephen when I was a college student, participating in a volunteer group. He was already a working adult and 5 years older than me, kind and dependable, so I quickly fell for him. We had several chances to go out together, and I confessed my feelings to him. After that, we dated smoothly. Before I graduated from college, he proposed to me at a restaurant on Christmas. And we decided to apply for a marriage license after I graduated. On my graduation day, he gave me a bouquet, saying, "It's the classic gift." It was a memory that our friends teased us about, but now it's a fond memory. After Lorraine was born, Stephen was dedicated and proactive in parenting, being a great father and husband. He never missed a school play, open house, or sports day, and we worked together as a team in raising Lorraine. Thanks to that, Lorraine grew up to be a kind and considerate person. After graduating from college, Lorraine has been working as a respectable company employee. And happily, she has met a wonderful person and is planning to have a wedding soon. With Lorraine getting married and Stephen reaching his 60th birthday this year, I felt a sense of relief. "Why don't you go on a date to celebrate Dad's 60th birthday?" Lorraine had made a reservation at a high-end French restaurant, which usually had a waiting list for months. We planned to have dinner there 3 months later. It might be the first time since the Christmas when Stephen proposed that we've gone to such a fancy French restaurant. I had the dress that Stephen gave me for my birthday cleaned and even made an appointment at the hair salon. I thought I might be overdoing it since it wasn't even my celebration, but I justified it by saying, "I need to dress appropriately for such a high-end French restaurant." I also had Stephen's suit and shirt cleaned. "You had my suit cleaned? Then I'll wear that green tie." The green tie was a gift from Lorraine, bought with her first paycheck. Even after more than 10 years, he always wore that tie for important occasions, saying it gave him confidence. A few days later, I went to lunch to discuss Lorraine's wedding preparations. I asked Rosie to give the friend speech. Mom, it's been a while since you've seen Rosie, right? Do you remember her? Of course, I remember her. But it's been years since we've met. She must be a wonderful grown woman now. Absolutely, we're both 32 now. She's a fine lady. We reminisced about Rosie from middle school, remembering how she would say things like, "You're saying that about yourself?" Rosie was Lorraine's best friend, a bit shy and very cute. She often came over to our house during the school days, and we had many sleepovers at each other's homes. Even though she visited less often after becoming an adult, we still went on trips and had meals together, staying as close as ever. She's like another daughter to us. I'm looking forward to seeing her. How is she doing? Well, she's fine, but... Lorraine's response was somewhat vague. Upon asking, it seemed Rosie was in a not-so-great relationship. I hope she meets someone better at my wedding. Lorraine laughed as she said this, but I could see she was genuinely worried. The mood turned a bit somber. So I shifted the topic back to Lorraine's wedding by showing her photos of several cocktail dresses she tried on recently. The wedding dress remained a secret, saved for the big day. I was sure I'd be in tears both when I put on her veil and when I walked her down the aisle with Stephen. 3 months passed, and today was Stephen's 60th birthday celebration. I had secretly prepared a present for Stephen. It was a DSLR camera he had wanted for a long time. Stephen's dream after retiring was to travel around the country with the camera. Dad says he wants to date all over America and take lots of photos. You two are really close. Remembering this, I bought the camera with some excitement. Since I had Lorraine when I was young, we hadn't traveled much. Thinking Stephen remembered all the places I mentioned wanting to visit, I suppressed a grin as I went out to pick up the camera. I got my hair done at the salon, picked up the camera, and planned to meet Stephen in front of the restaurant after his work. I finished my errands earlier than expected and had quite some time until our meeting time. It's been a long time since I had a date at a high-end French restaurant, so I was feeling a bit nervous. To calm myself down, I decided to enter a nearby cafe and ordered a hot lemon tea. As I slowly drank my tea, I received a message from Lorraine. You're on your date soon, right? Let me know how it goes. I'm heading home now. Yes, but I arrived early, so I'm killing time at a cafe. Oh, really? If you're near the restaurant, should I join you for a bit? Since she happened to be passing by after work, we decided to meet and chat until the reservation time. By the time Lorraine arrived, my tea had cooled down a bit. Wow, Mom, your hairstyle is cute. And that dress looks great on you. The hairstyle I requested at the salon, calm and elegant, seemed to be a hit. Lorraine, in her work suit, sat down and ordered an iced coffee. Our reservation is at 7 p.m., right? We still have some time. I hope Dad doesn't get caught up at work. He'll be happy to come since you made the reservation, Lorraine. As I checked my smartphone to see when Stephen might arrive, I got a call from him. Sorry, I can't make it because of overtime. That was all he said. He had known about this for 3 months. And he tells me just 30 minutes before the meeting time? What time will you finish? Even if you're a bit late, the restaurant may adjust the course time. I had many things to say, but arguing wouldn't help. Stephen was the guest of honor today. What time will you be done? Should I ask if they can push back the course start time? I don't know. I'll call to cancel. Another time, okay? Sorry, but I'm busy, so I have to go. Lorraine had gone through the trouble of making this reservation, and now he had to work overtime on such an important day. There would be a cancellation fee. How would he pay? Deposit? It's already 30 minutes before, and they must be preparing. How can he say another time when it's hard to get reservations? Thinking all these things, I took a sip of my lemon tea, which had gone completely cold. What happened with Dad? First, I had to apologize to Lorraine, who had made the reservation. Explaining the situation, Lorraine looked disappointed for a moment, then suddenly brightened up and finished her coffee. Our reservation is in 30 minutes, and they must be preparing. Let's go to the restaurant. If Dad is calling to cancel, there's still time. But Dad's so busy that he doesn't know when he'll be done, right? We can have dinner and then go home. I've always wanted to try that place. Indeed, it was a restaurant with a months-long wait for a reservation. Canceling at this late hour would be a hassle, even with a cancellation fee. Stephen's celebration could be another day. Today could be a date with my daughter before her wedding. Excuse me, we have a 7 p.m. reservation under holder. I believe a cancellation call was made, but we can make it now. The popular restaurant was bustling with people. Let's ask for a table with a view of the night sky, Lorraine whispered from behind me as we waited for our turn. The shop assistant checked her notebook, then asked if we were indeed holder. We have only one reservation under holder for tonight, and someone already arrived under that name. We haven't received any cancellation notice. Could you confirm the contact number used for the reservation? Lorraine gave her number. Yes, the contact number matches. However, 2 people already arrived under the name holder. What? But my husband said he couldn't come and told me to cancel. My daughter is available now, so I thought we could still make it if there's time. Who could possibly? Could someone have used our reservation without permission? I was so happy Lorraine made the reservation and might have bragged about it to some people. But who would do such a thing? Lorraine pressed the confused attendant, asking which table the person was at. You confirmed the reservation under holder, right? I have the right to know who used my reservation without permission. Please tell me. The table they pointed to was the one farthest from the entrance, a lovely window-side counter. It was a beautiful spot where you could see the night view side by side. Lorraine and I hid behind a nearby pillar. A man and a woman were seated, and the man was unmistakably Stephen, who had called earlier in a cold tone saying he couldn't make it due to overtime. The woman's face was hidden, but she looked much younger than Stephen. I couldn't comprehend or didn't want to comprehend the situation. Stephen, who lied about working overtime and canceling, was here with a woman at the restaurant my daughter had reserved for his birthday celebration. I was sad, but the fact that Stephen would do such a thing at a restaurant my daughter had thoughtfully reserved made me furious. Most painfully, Lorraine realized that the man sitting next to her was Stephen. Hoping it was a mistake, I called him. Hey, are you still working overtime? What? I'm still at the office. I told you, I don't know when I'll finish, I'm busy. I have to go. When I called Stephen, the man at the counter put down his fork and answered his phone. Sorry to bother you while you're busy. By the way, Stephen, you do love that red wine. Must be nice to drink on the job. Stephen quickly pulled the phone away from his ear and looked around. As he frantically scanned the room, I walked toward him, thinking, if he's this panicked, he shouldn't be doing this. Lorraine followed me, and when Stephen saw us, his face turned pale. The woman had her head down, her face hidden. Stephen stood up, trying to shield the woman from view. Working in a place like this? Quite the job. Didn't you say you were at the office? When did your office become this fancy? And who is this woman? What are you doing here? When did your office become this fancy? And who is this woman? What are you doing here?
Youre, why are you here? Just finished work. I was taking a break. I wanted to thank her for helping with my overtime.
You said you were at the office on the phone just 10 minutes ago. You said you couldn't come because of overtime. Poor lies are unbecoming. Tell the truth. As Stephen struggled to respond, Lorraine, who had been silent behind me, moved closer to the woman.
Rosie.
Rosie? Lorraine's friend Rosie? The woman, called Rosie, slowly lifted her head. With makeup on and after years of not seeing her, I barely recognized her as Lorraine's childhood friend who often visited our home.
We just happened to meet and decided to grab dinner.
Rosie awkwardly glanced around, clearly lying.
Enough of that. You told me you were having an affair with a married 60-year-old. I told you to stop countless times. Rosie, what's going on? You told me you were dating a 60-year-old. That he had a wife and daughter but would divorce and marry you once his daughter got married. That was about our family?
I knew she was seeing someone bad, but an affair? And telling her best friend, who was also her lover's daughter, about it. I couldn't fathom Stephen hitting on his daughter's friend or Rosie dating her friend's father. As Lorraine questioned Rosie, she finally began to speak.
I had a crush on Mr. Stephen since I was in high school. He was more mature and kinder than the boys in my class. I often ran into him when I left Lorraine's house, inviting him out on dates. He gave me his contact info at my high school graduation.
I had no idea it started that long ago. I could understand a young girl's crush on an older man, but Stephen giving her his number was unforgivable.
We had a few meals together in college, and by the time I graduated, Stephen asked me to date him. We'd been seeing each other for over 10 years.
Stephen asked her out? By the time she graduated was around the same time he proposed to me. It felt like all our memories had been tainted.
Lorraine is getting married, so it's time, right? I've been a good husband and father for many years. It's time for us to start our second lives.
Start a second life? That was his plan all along. We had worked hard as a couple raising our daughter, with little time just for us. That's why I was looking forward to traveling together. I even bought a camera for this, but it was for his trips with his mistress. I had so much to say, but no words came out. As tears threatened to fall, a senior shop assistant approached.
Please, you're disturbing the other guests.
Only then did I remember we were in a restaurant.
We'll talk later. Lorraine and I are leaving. Stephen, don't come home tonight.
As Lorraine pulled me away, I caught a glimpse of Rosie looking smug. Later, we arranged a meeting with Stephen, Rosie, and her parents.
I'm truly sorry.
When the door opened, Rosie's parents bowed deeply, almost touching the ground. Nice to see you again.
Our daughter has done a terrible thing. We are so sorry.
In the living room, facing me were Rosie and her parents, with Stephen sitting between us.
We've been friends with Lorraine for so long, and now we've betrayed you. We're deeply sorry. We had no idea she felt this way since school. We are also responsible.
They bowed again. Meanwhile, Stephen and Rosie looked emotionless, as if they did nothing wrong. It's not just Rosie's fault. Stephen is equally to blame for reciprocating her feelings. You don't need to bow anymore. Why are you apologizing? We didn't do anything wrong.
Rosie!
Stephen was clearly in the wrong, dating a high school student and proposing a relationship while being married. I couldn't say Rosie wasn't at fault, but Stephen should have ended it when she was still a high school student. I wanted to think she was a victim in a way, but at 32, she should know better.
Because I'm younger and prettier. Stephen only sees you as an old woman. He loves me more, can't you see? Rosie. Stop it.
Rosie's mother banged on the table, raising her voice. If I'm an old woman, Stephen, who is 5 years older, must look even older. Love is blind.
Stephen has loved me since I was a high school student. He gave me presents for Christmas and birthdays, always telling me how cute I was. That's right. Compared to high school Rosie, you're just an old woman. You're not as cute as you used to be. I won't spend my life with a housekeeper like you. You should be grateful I've supported a housekeeper I don't even love.
The man I admired and fell in love with turned out to be this pathetic? Dating his daughter's friend, taking her affection seriously, and going out on dates. Wearing the suit I had cleaned and the tie our daughter gave him for these dates. I always thought he was a good father, someone I looked up to, and tried to stay attractive for him.
This is pointless. Lorraine!
I called toward the door connected to the bathroom, and Lorraine came out holding a voice recorder.
Everything said here has been recorded. We will consult a lawyer and file for compensation for adultery.
Stephen and Rosie turned pale at the mention of compensation for adultery.
A lawyer? We've already consulted a lawyer, a friend of Lorraine's husband. We have the right to claim compensation for the years of infidelity.
Hearing this, Rosie turned even paler and approached Lorraine.
Hey, we're best friends, right? We've been close since junior high school for almost 20 years. And if I marry Stephen, I'll be Lorraine's mother. Asking me for divorce compensation is ridiculous.
Lorraine, on the verge of tears but holding them back, glared at Rosie. Rosie, confused by her gaze, kept muttering.
We're best friends, right? Yes, we've been best friends for nearly 20 years. Best friends. But how many of those years did you betray me and Mom? Rosie, you're the one in the wrong. Rosie's eyes darted around, then she moved closer to Stephen as if seeking protection from Lorraine, who kept advancing.
Stephen, shielding Rosie, glared at Lorraine and yelled at me.
A mere housekeeper asking for divorce compensation is absurd. Rosie will be Lorraine's mother. And if you want to demand divorce compensation, pay back all the money I've spent on you. Rosie will be Lorraine's mother? Don't be ridiculous. I am the only mother of Lorraine. Stephen, who cheated on me while wearing the tie Lorraine gave him, is no longer her father. This child is mine alone. No matter how it started, you two have been in an affair for years. You're the ones responsible for this divorce. You both will pay the divorce compensation. This child is mine alone. No matter how it started, you two have been in an affair for years. You're the ones responsible for this divorce. You both will pay the divorce compensation.
Seeing no way to win, Stephen's face turned bright red. Rosie, now beyond pale, looked at her parents. Probably hoping they would help. But they wouldn't even look at her.
If you continue this relationship, you're no longer our daughter. Pay the divorce compensation yourself and get married or do whatever you want. Never come back to this house.
Rosie, in a state of shock, couldn't believe her parents were abandoning her. Despite everything, she stayed by Stephen's side, making it clear they had no intention of ending their relationship. I had no intention of staying married to such a man, nor did I want Stephen acting like a father to Lorraine or pretending to be a friend.
We'll handle the details through our lawyers, I said, as Rosie's parents dragged Stephen and Rosie out of the house.
Through our lawyer, we demanded divorce compensation, but both refused, claiming they had done nothing wrong. When the case went to court, neither showed up on the day, and we were awarded the full amount of compensation. After the court contacted them, Stephen and Rosie bombarded me and Lorraine with calls and emails, which we ignored. We had no intention of accepting any apologies or reduced payments. They missed the court date, and I hadn't forgotten all the things they said during the confrontation. Since we requested an amount slightly higher than the average, their combined savings were completely depleted after paying in full. Rosie and Stephen were kicked out by their respective parents and ended up living in a small apartment with no one to turn to. Stephen's parents, being elderly, were shocked when he introduced Rosie, a girl young enough to be their granddaughter, as his new wife. Lorraine's wedding went on as planned. The speech by her friend was cancelled. Instead, the groom's friends stepped in with a side attraction that brought great excitement, making it a wonderful reception. I even got to walk her down the aisle, which felt like a small bonus. "Mom, if you wouldn't mind, could you live with us? We're expecting a baby, and it would be reassuring to have you with us, if you don't mind." While it was a lovely offer, I didn't want to intrude on the newlyweds. So I used a portion of the substantial divorce compensation to remodel our home into a two-family house. Next spring, Lorraine will become a mother. I look forward to meeting my adorable grandchild and supporting their family. Richelle. Congratulations on starting middle school. Charla, my son's wife, beamed with pride as she celebrated our granddaughter Richelle's achievement.
Thank you, Charla.
Charla opened her bag with a smile, taking out a box filled with freshly baked bread.
You made this bread? Way to go, Charla.
I clapped my hands in surprise, impressed by the seriousness of Charla, who normally didn't cook.
I thought I smelled something delicious. So you baked bread?
Harve said as he emerged from the shower, his hair still damp and a towel draped around his shoulders. He inhaled deeply, savoring the enticing aroma wafting through the kitchen.
Too bad for you. Charla made this bread exclusively for Richelle. There's none for you.
I laughed as I spoke, and Harve looked a bit disappointed,
I see,
but chuckled good-naturedly, humming a cheerful tune. Charla reheated the boxed bread in the microwave and transferred it to a plate.
I made this for Richelle, so make sure you eat it all, okay?
As Richelle took the bread, she suddenly sneezed. Immediately, Harve abruptly reached for the plate of bread. And before anyone present could stop him, Harve tossed the bread, plate and all, into the garbage can and quickly closed the lid with a decisive thud.
What on earth are you doing? How could you do something so cruel? Charla went to all the trouble to make that bread just for Richelle.
Unable to comprehend Harve's actions, I smacked his shoulder 2 or 3 times in reproach.
Nana, stop!
Richelle grabbed my arm to stop me.
Pop, thank you.
Her eyes glistened with large, shimmering tears. My name is Bella, and I'm 60 years old. I work part-time at a local supermarket while living with my husband Harve, a civil servant. We have 2 children, but they're both independent now and have started their own families. Our son, Roland, rented an apartment within walking distance of our house, where he lived with his wife, Charla. Charla was a full decade younger than Roland.
Nice to meet you, Bella. I'm Charla. It's a pleasure.
When Charla was first introduced to us, Harve and I exchanged surprised glances.
Charla, our son is over 30. Are you sure about this?
Harve asked with concern, but Roland immediately retorted, with a laugh.
What's that supposed to mean?
Observing their interaction, Charla smiled.
I was a bit anxious at first, but seeing what a fun family you are puts me at ease.
Well, if you're okay with a family like ours, We'll be counting on you for the long haul.
Harve and I quickly accepted Charla, won over by her bright personality and genuine warmth. According to Roland, Charla had lost her mother at a young age and had been raised by her father ever since. Her father had also passed away a year ago, leaving her with no living relatives.
That's why I want you and Dad to treat Charla like a real daughter.
Our son appealed to us with a serious gaze, and Harve and I nodded in agreement.
Charla, from today onward, we'll treat you as our real daughter. And we want you to think of us as your true mom and dad.
Bella, Harve, I can't thank you enough. I'm so happy to have met Roland and his wonderful parents.
Charla's eyes brimmed with tears as she bowed her head repeatedly in gratitude. Due to his job in sales, Roland inevitably had to travel frequently for work. Whenever we had time, we would keep Charla company and engage her in conversation. Charla seemed to struggle with cooking, and when Roland wasn't home, she would always resort to buying pre-made meals from the grocery store.
That's no way to live, dear. Come have dinner at our place every night.
Wouldn't it be a bother?
Although Charla politely declined, her face lit up with a radiant smile at the invitation.
Nonsense. You're like a real daughter to us, so don't hesitate to rely on us a little. Besides, it's always just Harve and I. Having you around would brighten up our meals. Well, if you insist, I'll gratefully accept.
From that day on, Charla began having dinner with us every evening. Additionally, Charla apparently had trouble keeping her place tidy. When I went to check on my son and daughter-in-law's apartment, I found the room littered with bags full of garbage and piles of laundered clothes.
Bella, I'm so embarrassed for you to see this mess.
Charla hastily tried to shove the garbage bags and laundry into the closet. Her cheeks flushed with shame.
You need to take out the trash on the designated days. And make sure to separate it properly according to the local rules.
I went home to retrieve the community newsletter outlining the garbage disposal guidelines and handed it to Charla.
I'll come help clean whenever I have time too. Roland asked me to take good care of you. So don't hesitate to ask if you need anything.
From then on, Charla began seeking our help at every turn, her requests growing more frequent and demanding.
There are weird bugs infesting the kitchen and I'm at my wit's end. I'm too scared to deal with it myself, so please. The laundry has piled up. Can you put it away for me? My friends are coming over to hang out. So could you go shopping for me instead?
After just 3 months, Charla's demands were escalating rapidly, her reliance on us becoming increasingly burdensome. Even the mild-mannered Harve grew suspicious.
Aren't we being a bit overprotective? If she can do things herself, we shouldn't let her rely on us for everything.
His brow furrowing in concern as he voiced his reservations. Some days, my part-time job would run late, and I'd return home exhausted. Even on those days, Charla would come over as if it were the most natural thing, handing me a basket overflowing with laundry.
I showed you how to use the washing machine last time, remember? We have the same machine, so you should be able to do it at home, right?
When I chuckled wryly, sighing in exasperation.
Oh, right.
Charla stuck out her tongue playfully.
When you scold me like that, Bella, it makes me happy. It feels like I'm being scolded by my real mother.
Seeing her suddenly display a lonely expression, I found myself unable to speak any harsher words. You're having dinner at our place tonight too, right?
Yes. Bella's cooking is the most delicious in the world.
Although I thought her phrasing was a bit over the top, I couldn't bring myself to turn away Charla when she acted so endearingly. After finishing dinner, as I was washing the dishes like usual, the landline phone rang.
I'll get it.
Charla, who had started getting ready to leave, picked up the receiver. I quickly wiped my wet hands on my apron, ready to take over the call at any moment.
Well then, I'll be heading home now. Thanks for the delicious meal today.
However, as Charla was about to leave, I hastily rushed out of the kitchen.
Who was that on the phone just now?
It was a pushy salesperson. They've been calling a lot lately. And it's really troublesome. Be careful of scams and such. They often target elderly households.
You're right. The neighbors said they've been getting strange calls too. So they've stopped answering the phone. Thanks for the warning. It's reassuring to have you looking out for us.
Definitely, let's be cautious. Well, I'll see you again tomorrow.
With a bright smile, Charla left for the night. This routine continued for about a year. In addition to Roland, we have another child, a daughter named Georgina. Georgina is just a year younger than Roland and married her high school classmate, Wesley. Currently, they live in the neighboring state due to Wesley's job. The distance is not insurmountable by car, and we understand that our daughter's family has their own circumstances. And we can't expect them to come over often just because we're feeling lonely. Nevertheless, Georgina would occasionally call to update us on their lives.
Guess what? Richelle won the Gold Award at the speech contest last week.
Oh my, that's incredible. We should celebrate the next time you visit. Think you could make it this weekend? Well, I'm not sure. We just came for Christmas. And the next long break won't be until summer vacation.
After ending the call with Georgina, I always felt a twinge of loneliness. Georgina has a daughter, Richelle, who is about to graduate from elementary school. Richelle is our one and only grandchild, a precious light in our lives. She affectionately calls us Nana and Pop. Her love for us evident in every embrace. Up until a year ago, Wesley would drive the family to visit us every weekend without fail. Richelle's laughter filling our home. Watching Richelle energetically run around the spacious yard and rush to hug us. "Oh, why don't you just stay here and never go back home?" I found myself repeatedly voicing a half-joking plea.
No way. I have school tomorrow.
Richelle would always take my jokes seriously, replying with a solemn face that only endeared her to us even more, her earnest nature tugging at our heartstrings. Every time I recalled her adorable face, I yearned to hear Richelle's voice without reserve.
Why don't you come visit us sometime soon?
Inviting her over the phone at every opportunity.
I'm sorry, Nana. I have cram school tests next week, so I need to study. This week, I promised to go shopping with my friends. And over the weekend, our class is going on a camping trip.
Like clockwork, Richelle would turn down my invitations, always citing one reason or another. Feeling a bit dejected, I would hang up the phone, only to have Harve gently pat my shoulder.
Richelle is at that age now. She must be dealing with a lot, like studying and maintaining friendships.
His smile understanding and comforting.
You're right. It seems like she's working hard too. Things can't be like they used to, can they?
I had no choice but to convince myself to accept the changing times. Although we couldn't see each other as often as before, Richelle would still call from time to share stories about school. Watching Richelle grow from afar became a precious connection that sustained us through the passing years. As the day of Richelle's elementary school graduation drew closer, the end of February fast approaching, Georgina called us with unexpected news.
Richelle will be graduating from elementary school soon, right? This year. Her spring break is longer than usual. I was thinking of bringing Richelle to visit you this time. What do you think? Would that be okay?
You're more than welcome. I'm sure Dad will be thrilled too.
But we just visited during Christmas. Are you sure it won't be a bother?
What are you even hesitating for? As if we'd ever turn down a chance to see our adorable granddaughter.
That evening, when I told Harve about the plan, he grew even more excited than I was. His eyes sparkling with anticipation.
Of course, we'll welcome them with open arms. Why is she acting so reserved with us? This settles it. Let's throw a grand celebration. For Richelle's graduation and middle school entrance.
Harve was so overjoyed, he couldn't stop grinning throughout the entire meal.
Whoa there, Dad. You all right? Your fork's not moving.
At our son's remark, Harve snapped back to reality.
Charla got to see me acting all uncool. Forget what you just witnessed.
His cheeks flushing with embarrassment.
I'll pretend I didn't see a thing.
Charla laughed softly, her eyes twinkling with amusement. That day, Roland had finished work unusually early and was having dinner with Charla at our place.
It's the last Sunday of the month, right? I've got a business trip that day. There's an important meeting with a client, so it'll be tough for me to make it. Come on, it's Richelle's graduation and entrance celebration. Can't you do something? Don't be unreasonable. This is work we're talking about.
Roland gave a wry smile at Harve, who always lost all sense of boundaries when it came to Richelle.
A celebration for her entrance into middle school? That sounds wonderful. I think I'll do my best for my cute little niece that day too.
Charla suddenly declared with a beaming smile, her enthusiasm infectious.
Do your best at what?
Well, let's see. I'll cook something special.
What? You're going to cook? Are you sure about that?
I feigned exaggerated surprise, but deep down, I was absolutely delighted. Charla, who never lifted a finger in the kitchen or with household chores, had just proclaimed she would put her heart into cooking for Richelle's sake.
It's okay, right?
Of course it's okay. Oh, I can't wait to see what kind of dishes you'll whip up.
Thank you. All right then, I'll work hard and learn some recipes for Richelle.
Seeing Charla's determination, everyone at the table burst into laughter. Before we knew it, the day of the celebration arrived. And our daughter's family came over from the neighboring state.
Hello, Nana. We're here.
Richelle greeted me with a slightly more composed demeanor. As she stepped out of the car Wesley had driven. When she was younger, she would fling the car door open and immediately dash over to hug me. But now that she was 12, those days were behind her.
To think that little Richelle is already becoming a middle schooler. She's growing up so fast.
As I lost myself in nostalgia, Georgina chuckled, finding my reaction peculiar.
We just saw each other at Christmas, but you're acting like it's been decades.
Well, even a single day without seeing my granddaughter feels lonely.
It wasn't an exaggeration, those were my true, unfiltered feelings. Once my daughter's family settled into the house, I promptly began preparing dinner. On a typical evening, I only needed to cook for 3, myself, Harve, and Charla. However, with the addition of Richelle, Georgina, and Wesley, I had to prepare a significantly larger quantity of food. Without needing any prompting, Georgina readily pitched in, helping with the cooking and setting out the appropriate number of plates, knives, and forks. It was clear that Georgina's upbringing had been thorough and proper. Richelle, too, seemed restless and kept popping her head into the kitchen.
What can I do to help?
She asked me as I bustled about, immersed in the preparations.
Richelle, you're the star of the show today. Why don't you just relax and watch some TV?
I ushered Richelle to the living room with a wry smile. If I didn't do this, The ever-responsible Richelle would refuse to leave the kitchen out of consideration for me. On the kitchen sofa, Charla was sitting and watching TV the entire time.
Charla, weren't you supposed to cook something for Richelle today?
Of course I did.
Since the moment she had entered our house, Charla had been clutching a paper bag, refusing to let go of it.
Richelle, congratulations on your graduation. And congratulations on starting middle school.
Charla beamed at her niece, her smile radiant with joy and pride.
Thank you, Charla.
Perhaps overwhelmed by Charla's enthusiasm, Richelle seemed to shrink back a little, her voice barely above a whisper. Still grinning from ear to ear, Charla reached into the paper bag and pulled out a box.
Oh my, you made bread? Way to go, Charla.
Although Charla had been eager to cook for Richelle, I hadn't been informed about what exactly she planned to make. Touched by Charla's dedication, especially considering her previous lack of culinary skills, I couldn't help but applaud her efforts.
I bought a cookbook and studied the recipes. Cooking is so much fun.
Perhaps elated by my praise, Charla's voice rang out with an unusual lightness and cheer.
Let me just borrow the microwave for a bit.
With those words, Charla carried the box into the kitchen. Harve emerged from the shower, toweling his damp hair.
I thought I smelled something delicious. Did you bake bread too?
Too bad for you. Charla made this bread exclusively for Richelle. There's none for you.
As I laughed and teased him, Harve looked a bit disappointed,
I see.
but chuckled good-naturedly.
If you'd like, I can make bread for Harve and Bella's wedding anniversary next time.
Charla returned from the kitchen, holding the box with a mischievous grin.
Now that's something to look forward to.
Harve smiled as he gazed at Charla's bread, his eyes softening with anticipation. Humming a cheerful tune, Charla transferred the bread from the box onto a plate.
I made this for Richelle, so make sure you eat it all, okay?
Oh, it smells wonderful. Richelle, you're so lucky to have someone make such delicious-looking bread for you.
As Richelle took the bread, she suddenly sneezed.
Are you coming down with a cold? You're about to start middle school,
So you need to take care of your health. No staying up late, all right? Just as I casually offered that reminder, Harve abruptly reached for the plate of bread. And before anyone present could stop him, Harve tossed the bread, plate and all, into the garbage can and quickly closed the lid with a decisive thud.
What on earth are you doing?
Unable to comprehend Harve's actions, I raised my voice and stood there.
Move out of the way!
Harve pushed past me and carried the garbage can out of the house.
How could you do something so cruel? Charla went to all the trouble to make that bread just for Richelle.
When Harve returned, I smacked his shoulder 2 or 3 times in reproach.
Nana, stop!
Richelle grabbed my arm to stop me. Her eyes glistened with large, shimmering tears.
Pop, thank you.
Richelle's voice trembled as she expressed her gratitude to Harve.
Richelle, what's going on?
Georgina, too, struggled to make sense of the unfolding situation, her gaze darting between Richelle and Harve in bewilderment. Richelle coughed, unable to answer coherently.
There were nuts in it.
Harve's face contorted as he spoke in a low, pained voice, a mixture of anger and sadness coloring his tone.
Nuts? That can't be true.
Richelle had suffered from a severe nut allergy since birth. When she first started elementary school, just the scent of nuts in a candy bar had triggered a life-threatening asthma attack, landing her in the emergency room.
To think she was trying to feed Richelle something so dangerous.
At Harve's growled words, Charla let out an exaggerated denial, her voice rising to a desperate shout.
That's not true. I had no idea Richelle was allergic to nuts. I swear I didn't know. Please believe me.
Tears streamed down Charla's face as she frantically tried to defend herself, dropping to her knees in a pleading gesture. Stunned by the unexpected turn of events, we fell silent, forgetting to utter a single word. Just then, the doorbell rang, shattering the heavy silence that had settled over the room. The sky had grown dark outside, and a glance at the clock revealed it was past 8 p.m.
The house was so quiet, I thought no one was home.
Our son entered the room, shrugging off his suit jacket.
Roland, didn't you say you had a business trip today?
That was the plan, but the client's schedule changed. So the meeting got pushed to next week. I hopped on a last-minute flight to come here.
Roland smiled and pulled a long, thin box from his bag.
It's a personalized pen for Richelle. I was planning to give it to her later, but I'm glad I can do it today.
With those words, Roland approached Richelle, perhaps sensing the unusual atmosphere.
Did something happen?
Roland asked with a serious expression.
It's the nuts. Charla made bread for Richelle, and it had nuts in it. Charla didn't know Richelle was allergic to nuts, so...
As Harve explained the situation, Roland's face instantly hardened, his jaw clenching tight.
You didn't know? Is that what you said?
Roland looked down at Charla, who was huddled on the floor, his gaze sharp and accusing.
There's no way you didn't know. I told you countless times. Didn't I? That Richelle has a nut allergy, so you need to be careful. In fact, weren't you the one who asked if Richelle had any allergies in the first place?
Is that true? Charla, did you knowingly try to feed Richelle nuts even though you were aware of her allergy?
I stared at Charla in disbelief, my mind reeling from the revelation. Charla looked up at me with pleading eyes.
No, that's not it at all. I just forgot, that's all. I sometimes make mistakes like this, and it frustrates me to no end.
She tried to brush off her actions as a simple, unintentional error. Then, Georgina, who had been silently observing the scene, spoke up, her tone measured but firm.
Charla, that's not the only thing you're hiding, is it?
Her sharp gaze pierced through Charla as she questioned her.
What do you mean? There's more to this?
I felt as if everything I had believed in was crumbling before my eyes. And I feared I might lose my sanity.
It was around the end of last year. Richelle called to talk to Mom and Dad. But Charla answered the phone. And you know what she said to Richelle? In a low, scolding voice. She told her, "Don't come over to play anymore." I was right beside her when I heard those words. And I couldn't believe my own ears.
That's a lie. Why would I ever say something like that?
Charla denied it vehemently, her voice trembling with emotion. However, Georgina refused to relent in her pursuit of the truth.
Richelle wrote countless letters addressed to Mom and Dad. But not a single one received a reply. Did you read those letters, Mom and Dad?
At Georgina's question, I turned to Harve, but he shook his head in denial. Until that very moment, I had been completely unaware that such letters had been sent.
Is that true, Richelle? You wrote letters and sent them to us?
Richelle nodded.
And while Mom and Dad were out at work, Charla took it upon herself to retrieve those letters from the mailbox and dispose of them. Didn't she? You even laughed as you told me about it yourself.
That's another lie. I never did anything like that, not even once.
Charla denied it once more, her voice rising in desperation. Georgina walked over to the landline phone.
You see, this phone has an external automatic recording device installed for fraud prevention. Your conversation with Richelle should be properly recorded.
With a matter-of-fact tone, she specified the relevant date and time. Then pressed the playback button.
Grandma and Grandpa are really bothered by it, you know. They find the phone calls annoying too. Richelle, you're already in 6th grade, aren't you? Aren't you embarrassed to keep relying on them like a child? Well, I suppose I can turn a blind eye to the occasional phone call. But coming over every week is just inconsiderate, don't you think? Grandma and Grandpa are too kind to say it outright, but that's how they feel. Writing letters is pointless too. I tear them up and throw them away so they don't burden Grandma when she comes home tired from her part-time job.
Listening to Charla's recorded voice, I was overcome by a wave of dizziness.
Charla, what is the meaning of this? When did I ever say that Richelle was a bother?
Charla merely trembled, refusing to utter a word in her defense.
Richelle made me promise not to tell Mom and Dad because she didn't want to worry them. But I can't stay silent anymore. Not after you knowingly tried to feed her nuts despite her allergy.
Richelle, Georgina. I'm her husband, and yet I had no idea. I'm so sorry.
Roland dropped to his knees, apologizing for allowing Charla to do as she pleased all this time.
It's okay, Uncle. It's not your fault.
I don't think there's cause for concern, but just to be safe, take her to the hospital immediately.
Harve instructed, his face tense with worry. Without hesitation, Wesley hoisted Richelle onto his back and carried her to the car parked in the garage. After watching Georgina follow them out.
For now, I'm taking Charla home today. We need to talk about what happens next.
Roland fixed Charla with a terrifying glare.
No! I don't want to go back. Let me stay here forever.
Mom, Dad, I'm truly sorry about today.
Roland apologized to us repeatedly before forcibly dragging Charla, who refused to budge, back home with him. In the end, Roland and Charla officially divorced. As for why Charla had resorted to such foolish actions, Harve and I were shocked when Roland revealed her motive.
According to her, she couldn't stand seeing Mom and Dad, who usually doted on her, prioritizing and cherishing Richelle over her.
You can't be serious. That's why she tried to hurt Richelle?
For Charla, who lost her mother at a young age, Mom was like a real mother to her. But Mom loved her granddaughter Richelle even more than she loved Charla. She must have been jealous, feeling like her mother was taken away from her.
Roland's next words pushed our anger towards Charla to its peak.
She showed no remorse at all. She said we were making too big a fuss over a mere allergy. She even laughed as she signed the divorce papers.
This isn't some harmless prank that can be brushed off.
You're right. This is a crime. We can't forgive Charla for hurting our precious granddaughter.
After discussing it among the three of us, Roland took a doctor's medical report to the police and filed a criminal complaint against Charla for assault. Upon her arrest, Charla admitted during the investigation that she had deliberately mixed nuts into the bread. Now, detained in a holding cell, Charla awaits the day of her trial. However, regardless of the verdict handed down to Charla, we will likely never see her again. Richelle, now a middle school student, is happily sweating it out with her teammates in the softball club. On a day with a pleasant autumn breeze, I find myself at Richelle's middle school.
Grandma, did you see me hit that ball?
Richelle flashes me a carefree smile, unchanged from her childhood days. On that fateful night of her graduation celebration. If Harve hadn't realized Charla's true intentions, we might never have seen Richelle's smile again. Thanks to Harve, who saved our precious granddaughter from crisis in the nick of time. Richelle's future is now protected.
Grandma, what's wrong? You've been staring at my face for a while now.
It's nothing. I was just thinking about how adorable you are. No matter how many times I look at you.
What's that? Don't say weird things.
It's not weird at all. You are our irreplaceable treasure. When I said this with a serious face, Richelle averted her gaze, looking a bit embarrassed, and ran off to join her friends.
She says she wants to be a nurse in the future. Apparently, the nurse at the hospital we rushed to that time was so calm and reassuring. Richelle found her dream for the future, wanting to become someone like that. I guess it wasn't all bad.
Georgina spoke as she watched her daughter, who had grown so strong and resilient.
Is that so? I was really worried after what happened. Richelle is a tough girl, isn't she?
I, too, will do my utmost to support and protect Richelle's strength. To be there for her and help her as she moves forward into the future.
We'll be living with my real mom, so you can go to some cheap facility for the elderly.
Good luck with your life then. My name is Linda. I've been married to Snow for 10 years. Snow has a child from a previous marriage, Carrie. Perhaps because we got married during Carrie's teenage years, Carrie has never really taken to me. Despite my efforts to get along, it seemed to only make things worse, and it became evident that Carrie disliked me more as time went on. So, I've been keeping a respectful distance. I inherited an apartment from my parents and manage it as a rental property. It brings in a considerable amount each month, which I've been saving for a comfortable retirement, since I have no reason to use my money. Snow has a lot of pride and can't stand things not going his way, which has made it difficult for him to keep a job for long. As a result, he earns less than the average man of his age. That's also why I never shared the details of my rental income with him. One day, as I was cleaning like usual, Carrie came home, slamming the door open.
It's so hot. Wow, this room is stifling. I can't believe you can stand it here. Unbelievable.
Saying that, Carrie turned down the air conditioning.
Welcome home. You're early. It's too hot to work, so I left early. Left early? Did you tell anyone at work you were leaving? Why should I? Someone will notice.
Hearing this, I sighed internally. Carrie is capricious, acting on whim without much thought for consequences. Like today, leaving work early on a whim, or canceling plans with friends if not feeling it. Moreover, Carrie complains when friends don't go along with plans. It seems Carrie doesn't realize this behavior has been pushing people away. I've even received a call from Carrie's workplace before. It was about Carrie's attitude at work, saying, "Pock."
We've sent to him multiple times about his work attitude, but there's been no improvement. Could the family possibly discuss this?
However, when I mentioned this to Snow, he was furious with the company. He told Carrie to quit such an inflexible job, and Carrie did. He has always doted on Carrie, spoiling her considerably. Of course, it's natural to cherish one's daughter, but he never disciplined her, always bending to her will. As a stepmother due to remarriage, I felt it was wrong to continue this way. I tried to teach Carrie about empathy, manners, and posture, but she wouldn't accept it, and my husband told me not to interfere, leading me to give up. While resuming cleaning and sighing, Carrie's mobile phone started ringing.
Yikes, it's my manager. Hello?
No, I've already gone home for the day.
Oh? I forgot about that meeting with a client today. Please apologize on my behalf.
It was clear from listening how selfish her reasoning was. Watching her talk to her manager while lounging on the sofa, I sighed again. Later that night, Snow came home. As I was warming up his dinner, Carrie entered the dining room.
Dad, you're home. Listen, it was so hot today, right? That's why I left work early.
She began telling him about her day.
Really? So you got a lecture from your manager for that? Why not quit if the company restricts your freedom?
Right?
I've been thinking about it.
Listening to their conversation, I felt dismayed. But I knew better than to intervene, as it would only lead to a quarrel, so I silently prepared his dinner. While he was eating, Carrie, talking and eating, caused him to drop his fork. As I picked it up silently, he started.
This fork is hard to use. You bought this, right? If it was easier to use, I wouldn't drop it.
This was nothing new. He has such high pride that he never admits fault.
Really, Linda, you're so inconsiderate.
I'm sorry. I'll buy something easier to use. Apologizing seemed to satisfy him, and I occasionally reminisced about how I didn't realize how proud he was when we were dating, thinking he was a kind person. Maybe I'm just tired. After a while, Carrie went back to her room, and I was washing the dinner dishes.
Today we started using a new tool at work, but it doesn't suit me, so I submitted a feedback form to my boss. A feedback form?
Yes.
I can't have it slowing down my work. Honestly, doing things manually is best.
But if it's the company's decision, shouldn't you try to adapt? Saying that made my husband visibly upset.
Are you saying I'm wrong?
No, that's not it at all. I'm sorry.
If this proposal doesn't get approved, I'm quitting my job. I don't want to work under these conditions.
It seems the saying like father, like son perfectly describes this situation. Snow, like Carrie, has a hard time sticking with a job. At the slightest dissatisfaction, he's ready to quit, having left several companies already. He's 53 this year. Does he really think finding another job at his age will be easy? Talking with him only tires me out, so I decide to go to bed early. A month passed, and I started to notice something off with my husband. It seemed like my intuition was right. He always had his phone with him, now locked tight. On his days off, he'd head out for golf with his boss every week, and he started coming home later from work. I couldn't help but wonder if he was having an affair, but oddly, I wasn't as shocked as I thought I'd be. Is it because of age? Or has my love for him simply withered away? Feeling restless about it all, I decided to hire a detective to look into it. The detective was very understanding and agreed to take the case. About 3 weeks after hiring them, I got the results. It was bad news. My husband was indeed having an affair. Surprisingly, I was able to stay calm as I listened. But hearing who it was with felt like a knife twisting in my heart. It was his ex-wife. Among the photos the detective showed me, some even included Carrie, showing they'd been meeting up without me knowing. Realizing I was betrayed by the two people I could call family was devastating. Seeing my distress, the detective offered,
"If you're considering a divorce, I can introduce you to a lawyer who specializes in such cases."
I took the lawyer's business card just to be cautious, let them know I'd talk things over, and left with the investigation results. When my husband returned home late at night, and with Carrie already asleep, I broached the subject. I showed him the detective's findings and demanded an explanation. At first, he was taken aback by the results, but then he quickly turned defensive and started questioning me.
"Why are you doing this? You trying to make a fool out of me?"
I didn't want to make a fool out of you. I was just concerned about your behavior and wanted to know the truth.
"So, are you satisfied now?"
No, I want to hear it from you. What were you thinking, having an affair?
An affair? It might look that way. But it's your fault, you know.
What do you mean?
I married you, even though you were secondhand, and you don't earn money, you're getting older, and you've never shown any gratitude for everything I've done for you. Is there any benefit for me being with you?
Hearing this, I realized he had no idea about our financial situation. He didn't know that the rent and living expenses were almost entirely covered by my rental income. His salary from job hopping surely wasn't increasing, likely much less than his peers. He was oblivious to that fact.
Are you serious? Of course I am. And you should know, the affair was with my ex-wife. Carrie is happy about us getting back together. There's no need for me to continue living with you. Carrie's happiness is my priority.
I understand how you feel. So, we're thinking of divorce then?
It's not a matter of thinking, it's decided. It's actually good timing that this came out now. Get the divorce papers first thing tomorrow.
Facing such cruel statements, I no longer felt sadness. Instead, I was overwhelmed by regret, wondering why I ever ended up with this person.
Understood. I'll go to the municipal office tomorrow. How will you explain it to Carrie?
Don't worry about it, I'll tell her. She hates you anyway.
Okay.
Though I knew he was not one to admit his faults, I was still taken aback by his blatant lack of concern. This unexpected reaction left me feeling even more dejected. Realizing I had never been needed hit me hard, making me question my entire existence up until now. The next day, I went to the municipal office to get the divorce papers. Stopping by a convenience store to buy a drink, I rummaged through my bag and found a business card. A lawyer. It was the card the detective had given me the day before. Considering the situation had escalated to divorce, I decided to seek advice. After collecting the divorce papers, I called the law firm straight away. Mentioning the detective's referral, I was able to smoothly secure an appointment. There had been a cancellation for the next day, so I booked that slot immediately. While preparing dinner as usual, Carrie came home.
Ew, making dinner even though you're getting a divorce? Is this some kind of lingering attachment?
It seemed she had already been informed by Snow.
If you don't want it, you don't have to eat.
As I continued cooking, Carrie started complaining, clearly displeased.
Why did Dad even marry you? I was against it from the start. Living under the same roof as an old person has been suffocating. Hearing about the divorce made me genuinely happy. Well, that's good for you. I also hated your pretentious attitude, acting as if you're not affected at all. Now you'll be all alone. Yes, I guess I will. I'll make the most of it.
Carrie left the house with a click of her tongue. That night, neither of them returned, and I ate dinner alone. The next day, I went to the law firm for my appointment and explained my situation to the lawyer. He suggested suing my husband and his affair partner for compensation. And I agreed to let him represent me. Returning home, I found my husband and Carrie waiting.
Where have you been? A housewife leaving the house. Who do you think you are? Really? Hope you weren't out spending Dad's money. I went to get the divorce papers from the office. So you're home today?
Placing the divorce papers on the table, Carrie rejoiced, and Snow started to fill them out immediately.
Oh, hurry up and pack your things and leave.
Carrie said this nastily, laughing beside my husband who was filling out the divorce papers.
Me?
Of course. You're the one who has to leave.
Why? Because we're getting divorced. It's obvious. Do as Carrie says. We'll be living with my real mom, so you can go to some cheap facility for the elderly.
Even though I pay $2,000 in rent? I thought, but if they were going that far, I decided I might as well leave.
All right, I'll leave. If that's what you want.
They had no other choice. You were just in the way.
Ugh, hurry up and pack your stuff.
Disgusted by their insults, I retreated to my room to pack my belongings.
Now we can live as a family with Mom again. Yay!
Indeed.
It's my fault for marrying such a person, causing you distress. Let's be a happy family of 3 again.
Their loud celebrations were audible even from my room. Feeling degraded, I decided to move to a retirement home I had considered for my old age. The next day, I took my things and headed there. On the way, I called my lawyer to discuss the settlement. The lawyer, equally appalled, reassured me, suggesting that moving might actually bring me happiness. I was headed to a renowned luxury retirement home, known nationwide, requiring a $1,000 entry fee. Despite its cost, its popularity was unmatched due to its excellent facilities. I had been saving up the rental income for when I turned 60, paying for the entrance fee to what I thought we'd enjoy together. But now, it seems even better that I'll be there alone. Leaving the legal matters to my lawyer, I also sought a bit of retribution by contacting a certain service. I didn't expect things to end without incident. A week after I left, Carrie called.
Hello? What do you want? What do I want? Some junk shop just came and took all our furniture. What's the meaning of this? Oh, I sold it. Sold it? How dare you do such a thing without permission?
Of course.
It was all mine, after all. What? What are you talking about?
Exactly that. All the furniture and appliances were mine.
Since I no longer live there, they're unnecessary, right? But that sofa was my favorite. I used it the most, so it's mine, right?
I don't follow that logic. If you liked it so much, you should buy it yourself. I believe that sofa was around $13,000.
$13,000? Are you kidding? But the bed! That bed is mine. Dad bought it for me.
I was the one who bought that bed. He just told me to buy it.
What? But wasn't it bought with Dad's money?
I bought it with my money. That's why I'm saying I sold my belongings. Everything that's gone, I purchased.
No way! Everything in the house. But this is too much. Bring everything back.
That's impossible. You'll have to figure it out yourselves.
Ugh. Fine. I'll tell Dad on you.
Feel free. Carrie hung up immediately. I anticipated a call from my ex-husband soon after, and sure enough, my phone rang with his name displayed.
Hello? I heard from Carrie. What have you done?
You're aware, right? Everything was mine.
Even so, you left, so the ownership transferred to me. What's yours is also mine.
What are you talking about? I never transferred any ownership. If you want something, you should buy it yourself.
That's because you did this on your own. You should take responsibility. It's absurd I have to spend money because of you.
Wow, your pride really knows no bounds. I'm busy, so I'm hanging up now.
Wait a minute.
I noticed my ex was trying to say something more, but I hung up without hesitation. I was in the middle of a spa treatment, after all. In the luxury retirement home I moved into, There's a relaxation room where you can get spa treatments by reservation. I ignored the multiple calls that followed. The next day, I received a call from a payphone. Curious, I answered, and it was Carrie.
You picked up. Why aren't you answering your phone? We're in trouble here without the furniture and appliances. Put everything back. It's you. As I said yesterday, if you need those things, buy them yourselves. Dad says he has no money. You took it all, didn't you? No, why would I? His bank book and card are still at the house. What? Then why does he say he has no money? Probably because he has a spending habit. Maybe he has no savings. What? Then how have we been living? I was covering living expenses. Huh? You're not working. What are you talking about? I don't work, but I had an income from rent. What do you mean? Rental income? So you were managing properties? Then what was Dad spending his salary on? Yes, so I could afford to pay for our living expenses. I don't know what Snow spent his salary on. You should ask him directly. Are we done here? Wait. If you have so much money, then why?
I hung up the phone. They had no idea how they had been living, such foolish people. I felt no sympathy anymore. There's no way they could live on my ex's meager salary alone. Despite knowing his own salary, he seemed to think he was supporting us with it alone. Even though his income wouldn't even cover the rent. It was my rental income that made our life possible. Now that we're divorced, their standard of living must have significantly dropped, but that's none of my concern anymore. By now, the real mom, his affair partner, must have moved in, so they should sort out their living situation amongst themselves. Calls from Carrie and my ex continued but gradually became less frequent. As I was getting used to my new life, the lawyer called. We've successfully filed for damages, and the other party is willing to pay. It should be resolved smoothly. The fact that my prideful ex-husband agreed without any complaints was slightly surprising, but since the lawyer said so, it must be true. I was happy thinking that this would finally sever our ties. Thank you. I appreciate your help a bit longer. Of course, let's keep at it. After hanging up with the lawyer, I felt a bit more upbeat than usual, thinking about taking a swim in the facilities pool. Then the phone rang again. Checking my mobile, I saw my ex-husband's name, appearing for the first time in about a month. Hesitant, but not wanting to stir things up after coming this far, I decided to answer the call. Hello, it's me. Rent hasn't been withdrawn since last month. I need your help. Help? For rent? His request was baffling. You were supposed to handle the rent. Think about our situation without furniture and only essentials, and you're not even paying the rent. I have nothing to do with it anymore. Why should I pay rent for a place I don't live in, especially since we're divorced? As I said that, he seemed to get instantly infuriated. What did you say? How much more selfish can you get? This was originally your house. You were the one who told me to leave. The selfishness is on your end. If you keep this up, I won't pay the compensation. Just pay the rent already. From what standpoint is he even speaking? This is beyond just pride. I felt disillusioned all over again. Could you discuss the compensation with the lawyer, please? No matter what you say, I'm not paying the rent. Maybe you should check what common sense is. What's with that tone? Who do you think has been supporting you all this time? Well, actually, I have. Huh?
I thought I was the one supporting you. So, whatever difficult life you're leading now, I don't care. Goodbye.
I hung up on Snow and headed to the pool. I was looking forward to a nice swim, but he ruined the mood. However, on my way to the pool, I ran into a friend I made at the facility, who was also headed to the pool, and we had a great time swimming together. Maybe I'm simpler than I thought. After coming back from the pool, I saw my phone lighting up with notifications. It seemed there had been a call. Feeling a sense of dread, I checked to see that it was indeed Carrie. As I hesitated whether to call back, my mobile phone started ringing again. Sigh, hello?
What's with that sigh? And what do you mean by not paying the rent?
It was about the rent again. Why should I pay for a house I don't even live in anymore? It seems obvious to anyone.
I've already told Snow, why should I pay it? We're divorced now. I don't live there, and I have no relation to you two. Why should I pay rent for strangers? So, you're just trying to make us suffer, huh? Mom was crying. You sold all our furniture and appliances, and now there's rent overdue, and on top of that, a compensation claim. How much more trouble do you plan to cause us?
Carrie spoke as if they were the victims. I couldn't help but think she's going to have a hard time if she keeps up this mentality.
Do you know what goes around comes around means? The actions you take will always come back to you. How is it that 3 adults can't even pay rent? What was your plan for living? Didn't you think about anything?
Challenged, Carrie began to falter.
Well, that's because Dad said he was a manager and his income was high, so we thought we'd just live off his salary like before. I thought life wouldn't change even if you left and Mom came.
He's a manager. I couldn't help but laugh. My ex-husband, who has never held a job for more than 3 years, a manager. Impossible. It became clear he had been inflating his ego to his daughter with baseless pride.
Don't laugh.
Carrie got defensive. Such a pitiful family. I don't know about the affair partner, but they must share similar values to consider reuniting.
Snow has never been promoted. He's never even been a manager, let alone a department head. What? That's not what I heard. Why don't you face reality for once? Reevaluate your situation, all 3 of you.
After I said that, Carrie hung up with a sob. It sounded like she was crying, but I don't regret what I said because I don't believe I was wrong. Later, the lawyer informed me that my ex had been hesitant about the compensation payment but suddenly agreed and completed the payment. This sudden change in attitude made me suspect something was amiss. The lawyer advised caution, uncertain of what my ex might do next. Though it's unlikely he knows my current whereabouts or could directly confront me, I decided not to answer any more calls from him, now that the compensation issue was resolved. With the divorce finalized and the compensation settled, our business was concluded. After thanking the lawyer, who assured me of their support in case of any future issues, I expressed my gratitude once again and ended the call politely. Despite having resolved everything, a lingering sense of unease and a bad premonition turned into reality. The next day, I received a call from the front desk to my room, saying a family claiming to be my relatives had arrived. It was my ex-husband and Carrie. My bad feeling was confirmed. Since I no longer considered them family, I asked them to be sent away, which they agreed to do, relieving me. I wondered how they found out where I was and what they wanted now, but decided not to dwell on it since I had chosen to cut ties. Later, as I was heading to the facility's restaurant, I happened to glance at the lobby. To my surprise, my ex-husband and Carrie were still there, arguing with the security guard and the front desk staff. Shocked, I instinctively hid. It was inconceivable they were causing trouble for others to this extent. My frustration grew.
We're here because our mom lives here. Don't make us say it again. Exactly. Get our room ready now. And it better be the best one. We're hungry, so prepare some food too.
This place serves a full course meal every day, right?
Awesome.
Hearing their words pushed me to my limit. Enough already, I said as I approached the lobby.
Mom, you finally came.
Come on, take us to our room quickly.
We were arranged to live in such a nice place with you. You're finally being useful.
Their attitude had changed 180 degrees, making me feel uneasy. They looked at me with full smiles, the kind that made me uncomfortable for the first time in my life. The front desk staff and security guard apologized to me, looking sorry. However, the ones at fault were this parent and child.
Don't apologize. You've done nothing wrong,
I told them, and they gave me a kind smile in return.
So, you sold the furniture and didn't pay the rent because of this. I finally understand. No, you got it wrong. There's no place for you here. Please leave.
What are you talking about? You moved here for us, right? Their entitlement irritated me to no end.
That's ridiculous. Stop it. This is my home. If you really want to move in, do the paperwork yourselves.
When I yelled, Carrie and my ex-husband seemed a bit shaken. They had never heard me raise my voice before.
What's got you so mad? Because we came late? To think we bothered to come here, and this is the reception we get. But we'll let it slide this time. Hurry up and show us to our room. I really can't get through to you, can I? All right, I'll show you to your room.
They seemed relieved at my words, completely missing the point I was trying to make.
Could you please call the police?
Right now,
I asked the staff.
Mentioning the police made them panic instantly.
What do you mean? Police? What are you talking about? I did say I'd show you to your room, didn't I? It's probably at the police station. Lucky you. And if you really want to stay here, come back when you're over 60.
I smiled sweetly, and the front desk staff immediately picked up the phone.
Wait! No need for the police, right? We came here for you.
For me?
When did I ever ask you to come? We couldn't find where you were living, so we hired a detective. And when we heard you were living in such a nice place, we decided to come.
From Carrie's words, it became clear how they found this place. It seemed their only motive was money.
So you're after money, right? Unable to pay a rent of $2,000, unable to fully furnish your home, and from our interactions, you figured I had money and decided to look for me, right?
They fell silent at my direct hit.
No, we didn't know the rent was $2,000, and Mom thought living with us in that house meant a luxurious life. She wanted back in, but after seeing the reality, she left. Carrie! Don't say that! Don't you have any pride?
But, as they started to argue in front of me, I could only watch in disbelief.
Anyway, if you can afford to live here, you should be using that money for us, your family. Since you're rich, you can pay back the loans we took out for the affairs compensation money, right?
Hearing this, everything clicked. They were evicted, life became tough, and they hired a detective with their last dime to find me, discovering I lived in a luxurious retirement home, planning to mooch off me. Assuming I was wealthy, they paid the affair's compensation with borrowed money, intending for me to repay their debts, a pitiful and absurd story. Who could make sense of such a situation?
I have nothing left to say to you.
We're complete strangers now.
The police will be here soon, so just wait.
As I said this coldly, they seemed to finally grasp their situation a bit, turning pale and starting to shake.
Okay, I get it. I was wrong. Please, spare us from the police. Let's start over.
I apologize too. I'm sorry. Please forgive us. You could see the disdain in the eyes of the people around us. I felt the same way, devoid of any sympathy for these two hopeless individuals. As they were apologizing profusely to me, the police arrived. The front desk staff and security explained the situation, and I also shared the details with the police, who then took the two away.
No! Not the police! Let go of me! Stop it!
Watching them being led away screaming and yelling, I felt a sense of closure. As I sighed, the front desk staff brought me a warm cup of tea and invited me to sit on a sofa in the lobby to rest. The warm tea tasted incredibly good. Later on, it turned out that my ex-husband and Carrie had been evicted for failing to pay their rent. Moreover, assuming they could live with me in the luxurious retirement home, they had quit their jobs. After being released by the police, they had nowhere to go and were staying in a motel. However, as their meager savings began to dwindle, they hurriedly looked for work and found a live-in job. They were relieved to have found a place to live, but the job was demanding, rife with cliques, and they struggled with interpersonal relationships, barely scraping by on a low salary. As for me, I'm living a life of elegance I wouldn't have experienced had I stayed married. Sometimes I indulge in spa treatments, other times I exercise, or I go out for karaoke with friends, leading a very fulfilling life. There are also plenty of events within the facility, which has led to an increase in my hobbies. Becoming friends with other residents and having more friends has allowed me to lead a luxuriously busy life filled with fun and happiness.
Get out of the way, you're blocking the pregnant lady,
Abigail said, gently stroking her belly. Her face held a mean-spirited expression that made you wonder, shouldn't pregnant women have a more gentle demeanor? I looked over at my husband, Daniel.
Go sleep in the storage room,
he chimed in, echoing Abigail. Watching Daniel side with Abigail, my love for him cooled off. Yet, a part of me still felt a pang of sadness. All right then, I replied. Daniel happily took Abigail's hand in response. Abigail gazed back at him, utterly smitten. The sight of them together washed away my melancholy, replacing it with a rising anger from within. I'll be out by tomorrow.
Sure. Oh, why don't you find somewhere else to stay tonight? This is mine and Abigail's house now, Daniel said, elated.
I nodded slightly and left the house. They won't be laughing for long. Leaving the house, I allowed myself a smile, imagining what comes next. My name is Grace. A 46-year-old housewife. Before marriage, I worked hard, but that was over 20 years ago. Now, I enjoy my days doing household chores and savoring coffee, just an ordinary middle-aged lady. My hobby is investing, which I've done since before I got married, recently enjoying significant dividends that allow for luxury hotel lunches and spa visits. Daniel, 43, is a salesman for a major company. He's definitely put on some weight, and honestly, his scent has become rather strong recently, but as a salesman at the top of his game, he sure has a way with words. Despite looking like a big, burly guy, I've always loved him. I've thought about encouraging him to lose some weight for his health, but there's a certain adorable quality to him that made me think maybe it wasn't necessary. We have a daughter together, Scarlett. Scarlett has inherited Daniel's facial features, and being slim, she has the beauty of a model. Not just in looks, but academically and athletically, she excels, bringing home top grades and being selected for national competitions, all while being humble and hardworking. Both Daniel and I dote on her, often to the point where others say we're overprotective. Daniel has a bit of a weakness for younger women, but he chose me, an older woman, and has always prioritized our family, so I've come to accept his occasional wandering eye. We lived in a second-hand apartment bought around the time Scarlett was born, which has been aging, leading to discussions about increasing the maintenance fees. Amidst this, Scarlett decided to do room sharing near her university. At the same time, my relatives offered us an uninhabited house to inherit, prompting Daniel and me to decide on rebuilding it and moving in. Little did I know that this move would lead to such a turn of events with Daniel. While our old apartment had 4 rooms, our new home has only 2. It's smaller than before, but designing it as a single-story home considering our elder years has made it very comfortable. One of the 2 rooms, a combined study and guest room, can be divided into Scarlett's room and a study, making 3 rooms if she comes back. Since moving, Daniel's nights have become late due to work engagements, and he often finds excuses to go out on weekends. Being sensitive to smells, sleeping next to Daniel, who reeks of alcohol and tobacco, has been a challenge even with separate beds. Thus, despite having a shared bedroom, I've been sleeping in the study since we moved into the new house. When it came time to send out moving announcements, I took the initiative, sending letters far and wide. Daniel isn't great with these sorts of things, so I handled sending letters to the in-laws' house and his relatives on his behalf. Since both my parents have passed away, I only sent brief notices to relatives and friends on my mom's side. I haven't kept in touch with anyone from my dad's side of the family. And that's largely due to my sister, Abigail. Abigail is my half-sister, 14 years younger than me. She was born to my dad's second wife shortly after my mom died when I was in my first year of middle school. Abigail was already 2 years old when they remarried, so I initially thought it was a marriage where both parties already had children. My dad passed away in an accident along with his second wife about 5 years after they got remarried. At the funeral, relatives on my dad's side mentioned that he and his second wife had been childhood sweethearts, and everyone had expected them to marry. They blamed my mom for coming between them, saying she proposed marriage through her company connections, leaving no choice for my dad but to marry her, casting his second wife into the shadows. Despite my memories of my parents being happy, it turns out my dad had a child with his second wife behind the scenes. That revelation shocked me more than anything. At the relative's house, Abigail's favorite foods were always served. She wore brand clothes, had the biggest room to herself, and was taken to any place she wanted immediately. In contrast, I was burdened with preparing meals, doing laundry, cleaning, had my part-time earnings taken away, and my room was a small storage space under the stairs, where I was begrudgingly provided with the bare minimum after asking. By the time Abigail reached the middle grades of elementary school, she had learned about my mom from relatives and had come to look down on me. I had to juggle multiple part-time jobs to finally move out of that house. With such experiences, it's no wonder I harbored no fond feelings for Abigail, and I hadn't told her about my marriage or having a child. A few weeks after moving in, I was enjoying a coffee when the doorbell rang. A man's voice said, "Delivery." The screen showed someone looking down. Wondering if Daniel had ordered something, I opened the door. And I was surprised by the person who was there. "Abigail? What are you doing here?" "It's been a while, sis. I just showed up." The person in front of me was indeed wearing the hat seen on the doorbell camera, But it wasn't a delivery person, it was my sister, Abigail. Abigail slipped past me, frozen in shock, and made herself comfortable on the sofa in the living room. I hurried after her and stood towering in front of her, looking down.
If you knew it was me, you wouldn't let me in, right? That's why I used a recorded voice from before. That's awful, deceiving me like that. Oh, scary!
Abigail feigned fear at my raised voice. But it was clear she was acting, evidenced by her smiling face.
I've come back home.
What? Confused by Abigail's nonsensical remark, I responded coldly. With a bright smile, Abigail began to explain her sudden visit.
Well, you never tell me where you are. I got married, but my husband's always on business trips, and it's boring. And when you get pregnant, it becomes harder to move around, right? Everyone said I should come and have you take care of me. Go back. I have no intention of dealing with you, let alone take care of you. But I've already come here planning to have you look after me, so it's impossible.
I was frustrated with Abigail's unapologetic attitude. Hearing her mutter, "Thief's daughter," under her breath, my anger reached its peak.
Get out! I never want to see your face again.
What's all the noise about? It can be heard from outside.
Daniel,
Surprised by Daniel's unexpected return, I was at a loss for words when Abigail stood up and went over to him. Then she wrapped her arm around Daniel's. Daniel didn't shrug her off and seemed pleased with her presence. "Oh, Abigail's here? Welcome."
Daniel, Sis is being mean. I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice to stay with Daniel until the baby is born, but is that not okay?
That's great. If you don't mind, you're welcome to stay as long as you like. I was stunned by the conversation between Daniel and Abigail. Not only that, but Abigail was clinging to Daniel, their proximity resembling that of lovers.
Daniel, what's this all about?
You see, Abigail's had it tough, hasn't she? Why be so harsh?
Jealous of your cute sister?
I felt despair at Daniel's words. I had told Daniel about my family situation before we got married. Yet, he said such things. Look, you're not using your bed in the bedroom anyway, so it should be fine, right?
Really? I can sleep in the same room with you, Daniel?
Sleeping next to you sounds like it'd bring sweet dreams.
Daniel, really?
Their conversation, like that of a close couple, gave me a headache. Ignoring me, the two of them went to the bedroom, still arm in arm, to put away their luggage. However, when they didn't return after a few minutes, a bad feeling led me to peek into the bedroom. There, I found them embracing each other.
Living with you feels like a dream come true. The baby's happy, too. To live with Dad.
Abigail's words filled me with despair. Daniel is Dad? What does that mean? Daniel, looking pleased, nodded while embracing Abigail.
We should leave the sister to babysit and go on a date.
She's only good for that. I watched them kiss through the tears, peeking through the door gap. From that day on, they treated me like a housekeeper. While obeying them, I began to gather evidence little by little. I discovered more shocking truths about our household, leading me to consider divorce. One day, Abigail, sitting on my favorite sofa, summoned me. She spoke as if she owned the place.
Get out of the way, I'm pregnant.
Abigail said, gently rubbing her belly. Shouldn't pregnant women look more compassionate? Abigail's face was filled with malice. I looked at Daniel.
You should sleep in the warehouse,
he said, agreeing with Abigail. Seeing Daniel side with her, my love faded. Still, I felt a bit sentimental. All right then. Daniel happily took Abigail's hand in response. Abigail looked at Daniel adoringly. At that moment, my sentimental feelings vanished, replaced by anger from the bottom of my heart. I'll be out by tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, why don't you find somewhere else to stay tonight? This place is now mine and Abigail's.
I nodded slightly and left the house, thinking they won't be laughing for long. After leaving, I smiled, imagining what comes next. I stayed in a hotel, planning my next steps. I arranged for movers to come the next day and planned to go to the office early before heading home. Excited about the future, I had trouble falling asleep that night, but feeling liberated, my heart felt lighter. The next day, I went as planned to get the divorce papers and headed home. The movers were already there, looking confused. They said the house was empty when they arrived, with just one cardboard box left at the entrance. At the entrance was indeed a small cardboard box with a note saying, "Please take whatever you want." Inside were my treasured books and cosmetics tossed carelessly, with books damaged and pages torn. At the very back was Daniel's wedding ring, fueling my rage. Entering the house, I found the bedroom in disarray with sheets, pajamas, and underwear scattered about, making it clear what had happened after I left.
"Please take all of these items,"
I said, closing the bedroom door and leading the movers to the study. Daniel doesn't read, so the study was filled with books collected by me and Scarlett. Since I only had a few outfits to begin with, I decided to take this opportunity to buy new ones. When I entered the living room, I found a letter on the dining table. The letter mentioned that Daniel and his companion were going on a prenatal trip abroad for 5 nights and 6 days. It instructed me to keep the house clean during their absence and to prepare for the divorce immediately upon their return. I was dumbfounded by their selfishness. However, this made my plan much easier to execute, so I secretly thanked them in my heart. After having the movers take all my belongings, I removed my wedding ring and left it in the kitchen. Leaving the ring behind, I exited my home. I debated over where to move but ended up buying a place near Scarlett's university that happened to be for sale. The new house was very comfortable, and I enjoyed my solitude for the first time in a while. On the day of their return, my mobile phone kept ringing incessantly. I knew who it was without even looking at the screen. Without diverting my eyes from the book I was reading, I answered the call. Yes.
"What the hell is this about?"
Daniel blurted out without any greeting, his voice frantic. The reason was clear, but I responded casually. "What do you mean?"
"Don't play dumb! The house is gone!"
I couldn't help but laugh out loud at Daniel's statement, hearing him panic on the other end. After my laughter subsided, I replied to Daniel. "Why?"
"Well, it's my house, so if I'm not living there, I don't need it, right? We were living there. What about our stuff?"
"Don't worry.
I've kept everything as is in a storage unit. I'll send you the location and the pin in a message. Don't mess around. Bring everything back now. Give us our house back."
That's funny.
The land and the house are in my name. I used the money I made from investments to build it, not a dime from you.
It seemed Daniel finally remembered the circumstances under which the house was built. When we were deciding whether to remodel or rebuild, Daniel said he had no money and told me to do whatever I wanted with my own money. So, I took care of everything from the paperwork to the payments, building the house to my liking. But Daniel, seduced by Abigail, had completely forgotten about that.
"Please, it's for your niece or nephew that's about to be born. Find us a house. It's unfair to Abigail."
My niece or nephew?
"I'd love to meet someone who can adore the child of the husband who cheated on them." "What are you saying?
Did you think I wouldn't notice?" Daniel had believed he hadn't been caught, but his confident demeanor quickly changed. I pressed on.
I've been aware of your affair with Abigail since the day she barged into our house, and I've been collecting evidence since then. Evidence? The baby camera Abigail had me buy. It's been recording. You didn't notice, did you? Daniel let out a small sound. The baby camera was the first thing Abigail demanded when she settled in. She had already done her homework and requested a high-end camera that costs $1,000. Of course, I initially refused, but after being yelled at by Daniel, I reluctantly bought it. However, the camera setup was left entirely to others, and neither Daniel nor Abigail had touched the camera since its purchase. So, I secretly activated it, capturing everything in the bedroom. True to its price, it even captures clear images in the dark, including both of you in bed and what you were doing under the covers. Snooping around like that is in poor taste. I was merely testing the capabilities of the baby camera. Still better than a man who cheats with his wife's sister, I'd say. Daniel seemed unable to respond. To Daniel, I cheerfully said, "Oh, and I think I left the mailbox untouched, so you might want to check that." The mailbox? Yes, it should have arrived by now. I could hear Daniel checking the mailbox over the phone. Then, the next moment, I heard his surprised voice. "Oh, good. It looks like it arrived, the certified mail. Make sure you take care of the payment, okay? Hey, there's one for Abigail too. Are you going to leech off your sister? What are you talking about? You two betrayed me, so this is a compensation claim. Family or not, it doesn't matter. But no excuses. We'll go through lawyers from here on out. Bye." Wait, Grace. I hung up, ignoring Daniel's call. My phone kept ringing off the hook, but I ignored it. I had already signed up for a new mobile phone over these 5 days, so the old one was just for keeping evidence. Ignoring it caused no problems. Daniel kept calling for about an hour but eventually gave up. He seems to have complained to the lawyer, who later reported to me with a tired voice. The next morning, I got a call on my mobile phone from Dad's side of the family. Since I hadn't given them my contact information, it was probably Abigail who had whined to them, planning to scold me. Reluctantly, I answered the call while recording it on my new phone. "Yes?" "How could you throw out a pregnant Abigail like that? Apologize to her immediately and provide a new house as compensation." "Why should I apologize to a woman who slept with my husband? Whatever Abigail has told you, she should be the one to apologize. And she should be the one to pay compensation. This is why the daughter of a thief." Right. Just like the child of a dad who betrayed mom and had a child with his affair partner. You end up with someone weak-minded enough to sleep with her half-sister's husband, growing up just as poorly. Oh, and please tell Abigail to stay away from me from now on. Though, I doubt she'll have the luxury to do so. The relative was still complaining, but I hung up, feeling surprisingly refreshed after venting everything I had been holding back. I contacted the lawyer to summon Abigail and Daniel. I wouldn't close this chapter of revenge until I saw their frustrated faces. The meeting at the law office then took place. Before me were Abigail, looking sulky, and Daniel, appearing disgruntled. It seemed they hadn't learned their lesson even after all that had been said. "I never thought my sister would turn out to be such a miser. I'm shocked. If I knew she was so greedy, I wouldn't have married her. I was deceived." Hearing Abigail and Daniel's self-centered comments, I moved beyond anger to sheer disbelief. I laid the divorce papers in front of them and also presented another document, a marriage registration form. "As for the compensation, I might consider reducing it if you sign this. If signing this is all it takes to reduce the amount, then give it here," Daniel said, snatching the pen from me to sign.
Abigail also signed, laughing. I put the documents in a file and then smiled brightly. I'll make sure to submit this to the office. Did you forget, sis? I'm already married. It won't be accepted anyway.
Well, don't worry. You're single now.
Huh? Abigail looked at me with a dumbfounded expression. I rephrased it for her, making it easier to understand.
Yesterday, the divorce mediation finalized our divorce.
I didn't know about that.
Well, you threw away the mail without checking it. There were several letters, orders to appear in court.
I got a message from your husband saying the divorce was finalized and now he's filing to deny paternity of the child.
That can't be.
While Abigail stood there dumbfounded, Daniel seemed oddly pleased. No wonder, since he could marry Abigail until after her remarriage prohibition period ends. To Daniel, who seemed quite content, I smiled sweetly.
It must be tough for you, having to support a child that isn't yours.
What?
The child in her belly is mine.
Oh, you didn't know? Poor thing.
The child Abigail is carrying is actually from her real boyfriend at the club.
Club guy?
When Daniel turned to Abigail with force, she awkwardly looked away, indicating my statement was true. Seeing this, Daniel's face turned pale, realizing the truth.
Good luck with the compensation payment and raising someone else's child.
I know it'll be tough.
Grace, let's start over. I was wrong. After all, there's Scarlett.
As Daniel changed his tune, the door to the lawyer's office burst open, and a woman walked in. Daniel turned pale the moment he saw her.
Scarlett?
Dad, you're the worst. Hurting Mom like that. I'm cutting ties with you. From now on, I'll live with Mom. You and that loose woman can just disappear.
Scarlett had never spoken so harshly before, leaving Daniel frozen in shock. Meanwhile, Abigail, insulted, was red-faced and trembling.
Who are you calling loose?
Sleeping with someone other than your husband, then my husband, and also your real boyfriend from the club. Which part of that isn't loose? Are you insane?
Scarlett's fierceness left Abigail speechless. I delivered the final blow to Abigail. Just so you know, he's frugal but never manages to save money because he spends it all on young women, so be careful.
What? But what about the house, the car?
Oh, those? All mine. Bought with my dividend income. We used them as a married couple, but after the divorce, we're strangers. A man with a $3,000 salary couldn't afford that car anyway.
$3,000? Even though he works for a big company?
Apparently motivated by money, Abigail was frozen in shock. Daniel, too, was looking down, embarrassed by the revelation of his low salary.
Well, good luck with everything.
I said that and left with Scarlett, entrusting the rest to the lawyer. The dinner I had with Scarlett that night was genuinely enjoyable and delicious, the best we had in a long time. Later, I filed the divorce papers. When Abigail's remarriage prohibition period ended, I also submitted Daniel and Abigail's marriage registration. The witness section was signed by me and Abigail's ex-husband. Daniel was fired for repeatedly cheating with Abigail during work hours and misappropriating travel expenses for their affairs. Now he's struggling, working part-time jobs to make ends meet. Abigail seems to be taking care of the child but cries daily, having been dumped by her club boyfriend once the money ran out, unable to tolerate her unbearable personality. Abigail admitted she targeted Daniel because she couldn't stand that I got married and had a child before she did, wanting to ruin it. She thought she could get money from both her ex-husband and Daniel by claiming the child was Daniel's and leave the care to me while she visited her club boyfriend. After all this, even her relatives have abandoned her, forcing her to reluctantly take up part-time work, which didn't last long due to her attitude. Now, she, Daniel, and the baby live cramped together, barely scraping by. Scarlett is enjoying her university life. I was surprised to learn her roommate was her same-sex partner, but seeing Scarlett happy made me think it was all right. As for me, I continue to live off my dividend income. After the divorce, I've been in touch more with Abigail's ex-husband, who's been asking me out to dinner. It seems that Abigail and her ex-husband were married through their parents' introduction, pushed heavily by Abigail herself, I later learned. Yet, I wonder why she was dissatisfied with him, to the point of curiosity. I received a message from him earlier on my mobile phone, saying he has something important to discuss, making me feel somewhat restless today. Despite telling myself not to expect too much, my face blushed like that of a girl in love as I sat in front of the dresser, applying makeup.
First, take this $20 and go to the hospital, because I promised Mom I'd do something for her first.
My husband said, pulling out the bill and handing it to me. I was completely taken aback by this unexpected turn of events and could only stand there dumbfounded, watching him drive away. Incredibly, he had chosen to leave his wife, who was in pain from her water breaking, to prioritize taking his mother to her hobby class. Despite the harassment I had suffered from my mother-in-law, Mary, and the tough times she put me through, I had always endured it, thinking of our unborn child. But now it was clear to me. A person who disregards their child like this doesn't deserve to be a parent. I steeled myself to face childbirth alone, enduring the increasing pains. I am Jane. Tom, whom I married right after graduating from college, is 3 years older than me, and we lead a reasonably happy married life. He was a senior at the club I belonged to in college. He seemed to have fallen in love with me at first sight when I joined as a new member, and looking back, I was embarrassingly overwhelmed by his passionate approach. As a young adult, just being a senior made him seem irresistibly cool, and I responded to his approach. We dated smoothly from 3 months after I enrolled until graduation. Even after marriage, Tom was head over heels in love with me, so I never worried about him cheating. He proudly tells his colleagues how happy he is to come home on time every day and eat the meals I cook while they're still warm, so I doubt any woman would purposely approach him. However, Tom has always been particularly kind to women, and naturally, some were drawn to him. But he has always been devoted to me, and I've never been attracted to any other man. However, there's a reason why I initially described our marriage as reasonably happy. That reason is my mother-in-law, Mary. I thought mother-in-law problems were a thing of the past, but Mary frowned the moment she saw me.
What's with your hair? Looks like you dumped paint on it. Let me guess, you dyed it in a hurry last night, trying to look innocent? It's embarrassing. Can you leave my son and go home for today? Seriously, you knew we were meeting. You should have taken care of your hair earlier.
When I first visited Tom's family before we got married, Mary said this, and I, still young, turned pale with fear. Just as Mary said, I realized the day before that my hair color was too bright, so I dyed it with Tom's help. Feeling embarrassed and frustrated at being seen through, I was down for a while after that. It was my fault for the breach of etiquette, but I wouldn't have been so upset if Mary had been a bit more restrained in her comments. Because of my hair color, I felt like I was being pushed away from Tom and was sent back home alone from my first visit to his family, so Tom called me later.
Mom was just nervous and came off too harsh. She actually likes you, Jane, so don't worry. She's in favor of our marriage and really wants you to visit home again.
This time, I was irritated with Tom's carefree talk. He didn't stop Mary from making snide remarks right in front of me, and he even seemed to be defending her. There's no doubt Mary doesn't genuinely want me at her house. Would I be pressured to live with them after marriage and face daily harassment? Surprisingly, when we got married, Mary didn't suggest anything like that. I was relieved, but soon after, Mary began frequently inviting Tom to her home.
Now that you've finally graduated from a far-off university and got a job here, you get married right away.
I've been so lonely. Why don't you let Jane rest and stay here for about a week? Messages like this would arrive for Tom, and I shivered. Showing me the message, Tom asked,
What do you think?
Instead of answering, I called Mary right there.
I'm sorry, but we haven't finished unpacking and the paperwork isn't done yet either. It'll be a while before Tom can relax. I apologize.
When I said this, Mary replied with nagging words.
Do the unpacking yourself? Don't always rely on my son.
But I just nodded along and ended the call. Mary's offer to let me rest was just a facade. She wanted her dear son by her side. I was annoyed with Mary for lacking consideration, especially as newlyweds, and also upset with Tom for not refusing. According to Tom, Mary has always been like this. Her overprotectiveness worsened after she divorced Tom's father. When Tom decided to go to college, she cried and tried to stop him. Somehow he convinced her and went to college, but they communicated via messages and calls almost every night. Tom trusts his mother, who raised him as a single mom, so they've always had a good relationship. It's fine to be a caring child and mother, but there should be an appropriate distance between adults. And I understand it's not good to interfere with another family's dynamics. He was serious about his job and chores and had a nice personality, so for a while, I tried to come to terms with it. But it wasn't long before I began to question the uncomfortably close relationship between the two of them. One holiday, my usually late sleeping husband woke up earlier than me and started preparing to go out, so I asked,
Did we have plans to go somewhere today? Mom and I are going shopping, Jane. You can keep sleeping.
He replied with an unbelievable answer. Apparently, Mary wanted to buy clothes and asked Tom to come along so she could ask for his opinion. I got angry again at my husband for agreeing without hesitation, but tried to stay calm.
You finally have a day off. Let's do something together.
I tried to keep him walking out the door. But he shook his head and replied,
I'd like that, but I already promised Mom, and she seems to be waiting outside already.
Shocked by his words, I headed to the entrance in my pajamas. Looking out the window to the garden, I saw Mary's bright red car parked there. Noticing my gaze, Mary turned around and smirked as she got out of the car.
Tom, you're late. Jane's a stay-at-home wife and still asleep at this hour?
Pathetic.
Should I buy you an alarm clock on our way home today?
Mary, with her bright red lipstick matching her car, laughed heartily and affectionately took my husband's hand, leading him to the passenger seat. I was dumbfounded watching their cozy interaction and could only watch as Mary's car sped away cheerfully. After this incident, my husband's behavior started to change gradually. He almost stopped doing the household chores he used to do naturally and began going to his family's house almost every weekend. His attitude towards me also changed, becoming more domineering.
Jane, you're too lazy. When I have a day off, you just sleep with me, right? Can you call that being a housewife? You even stopped putting on makeup at home. That's not good after getting married. Mom is worried about you, too. Why don't you visit her alone once in a while?
I don't know what Mary has been saying about me, but my husband agreeing with her is absurd. He never mentioned anything about naps or makeup during our courtship. But as my husband says, maybe Mary really is concerned about my behavior. I tried to convince myself of this several times, but knowing how Mary treats my husband like a lover, I can't help but see it as harassment towards me. However, I thought Mary's curse would change once we had a child. I found out I was pregnant shortly after I started having doubts about my husband's behavior. His eyes lit up with joy. And he held my hand, promising to work through it together. But Mary's harassment got worse after this, indirectly forcing my husband to leave me alone for trivial reasons like shopping, hospital visits, or cleaning her house. I tried explaining to my husband that Mary's actions were malicious towards me, but it backfired. He suddenly snapped with anger.
Mom always talks about you when we meet. She says you should go back to your parents' house or take time for yourself. Getting angry over this will affect the baby in your stomach. You should appreciate Mom's concern.
He started leaving me alone more often. As morning sickness worsened, I told him I was anxious being alone and wanted him to be with me as much as possible. But to my cry for help, his reply was unbelievable.
Even if I'm around, there's nothing I can do for you. Mom said she wanted to be alone all the time during her pregnancy and didn't even want to see Dad.
He wouldn't listen to me. And feeling physically and emotionally unstable, I resolved to fight alone. Then, one day while shopping for baby items with my husband, we bumped into one of his colleagues.
Tom, I hear you're actively attending parenting classes. Your home library is full of parenting books, right? Today, too, accompanying your wife for shopping, you're going to be a great dad. Can't wait for your child to be born.
I was so shocked that I blurted out.
What?
Tom quickly interjected, laughing.
Stop it, man.
Turns out, he's been pretending to be a devoted new father at work, making up stories. I kept quiet to avoid a scene with the colleague, but inside, I was seething with anger. He continued to prioritize Mary, and occasionally, when I ran into his colleagues, they'd envy me.
Jane, you found the ideal husband.
These incidents gradually made me start distrusting my husband's words and actions. I can't say for sure if the stress caused it, but one weekend, while I was making lunch, I noticed my pants were wet. A certain thought crossed my mind, so I rushed to the bathroom. And sure enough, I realized my water had broken. I headed to the bedroom where my husband was still sleeping and yelled to get the car ready right away. My husband, groggy at first, quickly helped me walk by supporting me under my arm when he learned my water had broken. The nurses had repeatedly told me to come to the hospital immediately if my water broke. There might be urgent danger, so my husband was also somewhat panicked. In the midst of labor pains, we finally managed to get into the car and started driving when my husband's mobile phone rang. Unable to answer while driving, I peeked at the screen amidst my pain. When I saw Mary's name, I intuitively had a bad feeling. I glared at the screen for a while, but the ringing continued the entire time. Thinking it would be quicker to explain the situation, I reluctantly answered the phone.
Tom, where are you?
It's Wednesday, it's the day for my craft class? Did you forget? Mary's voice, never used when talking to me, sent chills down my spine, but I explained to her.
Mary, actually, my water just broke, and I'm on my way to the hospital with Tom.
As soon as I spoke, Mary's tone changed dramatically, and she started yelling at me.
That's your own problem. I don't care. How dare you use your resting husband as a taxi? Put Tom on the phone. Today is the fixed day for my craft class. I had the appointment first.
Stunned, I couldn't believe Mary was saying such things, not even concerned about her grandchild. I remained silent, but Mary's shrill voice continued. Sorry, Jane, my husband muttered. For a moment, I thought he was apologizing for Mary's outburst. But then, I realized he had walked around to the back seat where I was lying and was opening the door. Confused and in pain, I was speechless. Then my husband said something unbelievable.
I had promised to drive Mom, so can you take a taxi or ambulance from here? I'll definitely catch up later. That's the plan. Wait. Are you prioritizing your craft class over your own child? I can't convince Mary, so you talk to her. The pain is getting worse, hurry up.
I was desperate, so I raised my voice. But my husband frowned and said,
It's a regular commitment. It can't be helped. I'm sorry I forgot to tell you about it. Here's some money, please manage with this.
He took $20 from his wallet and stuffed it into my bag. Then, he went back to the driver's seat and left me there without hesitation. I can't believe this. I was still close to our house. Not wanting to be seen by neighbors, I quickly looked up for a taxi. Amniotic fluid continued to trickle down my legs, and I panicked about the baby's safety. Tears welled up in frustration as I stared at my mobile phone, trembling with pain, wondering why we had to endure this.
Jane!
Startled by my name being called, I turned around and saw a familiar face.
What's wrong? You look terrible. Don't worry about talking, just get in.
This person gently supported me and helped me into the back seat of their car. Her husband adjusted the seat for me as he sat in the driver's seat. After that, my memory is fuzzy. I was rushed into a wheelchair at my regular hospital and taken to a prepared hospital room. The pain was so intense that I groaned, but I was told there was still time before the birth, so I rested there. I endured the overwhelming pain that occasionally threatened to make me lose consciousness when suddenly, my mobile phone rang. Thinking it might be a callback from my mother, who I had called on the way, I was shocked to find it was my husband. Looking at the clock, it was already evening. 3 hours had passed, and now he arrives? I decided not to answer. But after continuous ringing, I picked up the phone, irritated.
Jane! Help me! I want you to explain the situation.
Not even a word of concern for me, and now he wants help? Even if he was about to be eaten by a crocodile, I had no obligation to help the man who abandoned his child and me.
Who do you think you are? How dare you say such things?
I yelled at my husband through the mobile phone and then hung up. After a while, I faced childbirth alone. I would have liked to have my reliable husband holding my hand at such a time, but it's better off without a foolish husband who can't even prioritize things right. Instead, I received support from the kind nurses, and by nightfall, my long-awaited baby was born. Both mother and child were safe, and I fell asleep quickly due to the exhaustion. The next morning, the first thing the nurse told me when she came into my room was that my husband had come. Apparently, he came right after the birth, but since I was sleeping so deeply, the nurse kindly sent him back home. Honestly, I thought I would never want to see my husband again. But when he entered the room looking so haggard, I couldn't help but ask what happened. The person who had helped me in my suffering and taken me to the hospital yesterday was N, a neighbor I had always been close with. She had taken care of me like her own daughter since her son was about the same age as me, and she had been a great support to me when I was newly married and anxious. When I told her in the car that my husband was taking Mary to her hobby class, she was furious as if it was her own matter. Little did I know that this would ultimately corner my husband. After dropping me off, and spread the story around the neighborhood. Being the head of the neighborhood association, her words spread quickly, and her friends seemed to have confronted my husband about it. The reason my husband was begging for help was this: it seemed to have caused quite a commotion, attracting onlookers around our house. No matter how panicked he was, it was obviously too foolish of him to ask for my help in that situation. I had not heard from Mary since then, and my mind was already made up. Sorry, but can you leave?
I'm still not feeling well, and my parents are coming soon.
Both of them know about this, right? I want to apologize. Can I stay? My husband spoke in a small, pitiful voice.
What? You wanting to apologize is not my business. I'm busy, so please leave.
Don't say that. By the way, where's the baby? I'll leave after seeing the baby.
Just leave. There are other pregnant women here, so please go.
Even though I replied coldly, he still stood there, so I turned my back and covered myself with a blanket. I'm sorry. Please call Mom for me. I want to send her a photo of the baby. Can I call the nurse? Unbelievably, my husband reached out and shook me. When I couldn't stand it anymore and was about to push him away.
What are you doing? Don't touch my daughter.
My parents walked into the room just in time. My mother rushed over and pushed my husband away.
How dare you shake the body of someone who just gave birth? And after doing such a thing, how could you show your face here? I'm disappointed in you. Get out of here, now.
Even I had never seen my mother so fierce, and overwhelmed by her presence, my husband finally left the room. My father followed him, and I knew he would be thoroughly scolded. During my hospital stay, I refused to see my husband and took the baby to my parents' house after being discharged. I didn't want to risk meeting him, so I told him over the phone that I wanted a divorce. I only communicated about writing the divorce papers, mailing them, and claiming compensation, ignoring anything else he said. By the way, the compensation was for the scratches and bruises I got when he forcibly removed me from the car. He tried to make excuses, but I silenced him by saying I had testimony from and her husband and photos of the injuries from that day. The lawyer said the cost for his malicious actions against a pregnant woman would be significant. While I was busy with the baby, Mary showed up at my parents' house once. The rumors spread by and didn't seem to fade, and the neighbors' gazes were cold. She blamed it all on me for not respecting our family, but my father handled everything. Both of them were scolded by my father, and I thought it would have been better if we had done this from the beginning. But to that my father said, "The head of the household doesn't easily come to the forefront." He was oddly showing off. When I got used to childcare, I invited Anne to my parents' house and introduced her to them. Being of the same age, she quickly became friends with my mother, and we agreed to keep in touch. And then told me about my ex-husband, which she heard from a friend who worked part-time at his company. Her friend, who loves gossip like Anne, seemed to have spread the story about my ex-husband to others at some point. The story spread quickly again, and his reputation plummeted. He had pretended to be a devoted new dad, and the disparity was so great that his bosses and colleagues looked at him with disdain, leading him to resign in disgrace. Becoming unemployed with no qualifications just before turning 30, my ex-husband lived in fear of the neighbors' gazes, relying on Mary's pension and savings. Years later, I almost forgot he existed, but then he called again.
Where are you? I'm in front of your parents' house right now, but the nameplate is different, isn't it?
He said this out of the blue, so I responded in kind. Can't you tell by the nameplate? I've moved. What do you want?
Moved? You're living it up with the compensation I gave you. Come back right now, let's start over. Mom wants to see you too. What you're saying makes no sense. Why would I go back to you? Still saying that? I don't want to hear anything, so don't call me.
I hung up without waiting for a response, and my phone kept ringing for a while. After finally completing the call rejection settings, messages begging for reconciliation arrived. I read them all just in case, but...
Don't you feel sorry that the child doesn't have a father? It's unfilial to not show yourself to mom after taking care of you.
He wrote such nonsensical things, so I deleted them all and changed my email address. This whole ordeal was the worst, but thankfully, it allowed me to push for a favorable divorce and penalize the other party. Having such a terrible family member is not good for the child. Thinking so, I enjoyed relaxed parenting while being supported by my parents, who had become grandparents.